Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we jump into today's story, I want to hear from you in the comments. Has anyone ever cheated on you? Or have you ever been in a relationship where someone asked for a break? I'd love to read your experiences. Alright, grab a drink, get comfortable, and enjoy the story. I never thought I would find myself telling this story, especially at my age. By the time you hit your 40s, you think you've already figured out how relationships work. You think you've learned all the hard lessons from your 20s and 30s. But life has a cruel way of reminding you that you're never too old to be blindsided. When I met her, I was 45 and she was 49. Honestly, the age difference didn't matter much. We were both adults, both experienced, and at a point in our lives where games and drama should have been behind us. At least that's what I thought. She was charming, confident, and had this energy about her that made me feel alive again. It wasn't just attraction, though there was plenty of that in the beginning. It was the way she looked at me, like she really saw me. After years of feeling invisible in past relationships, that kind of attention was intoxicating. We dated for a little over a year before we decided to move in together. At that stage, things still felt exciting. Sure, we had some arguments, every couple does, but nothing that made me question the foundation we were building. We laughed a lot. We traveled. We had those late-night talks that made you believe you'd finally found your person. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the kind of love people wait their whole lives for. So when she suggested we take the next step and live together, I didn't hesitate. I thought it was the natural progression. I thought moving in would bring us even closer, give us that sense of partnership I had always wanted. I imagined lazy Sunday mornings, cooking dinner together, even silly little arguments over what to watch on Netflix. I pictured a home filled with warmth and stability. But the reality was very different. From the moment we signed the lease on that first apartment together, things started to shift. It wasn't obvious at first. It was more like tiny cracks forming in a wall you assume is solid. We argued more, and the arguments weren't about anything big. It was the little things, how I folded laundry, how she loaded the dishwasher, the way I left my shoes by the door. At first, I brushed it off as the normal adjustments of two adults learning how to share space. But the tone of the arguments felt different. They weren't just disagreements. They carried this undercurrent of resentment that grew louder over time. And then, almost without me realizing it, intimacy started slipping away. In the beginning, we couldn't keep our hands off each other. But as the months passed, she became more distant. At first, I thought maybe it was stress, or maybe we were just settling into the comfort zone of living together. But comfort turned into avoidance. Hugs felt shorter. Kisses felt obligatory. Nights in bed turned cold and quiet. I can't even pinpoint the last time she reached for me out of genuine desire. That realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I knew she was going through perimenopause, and I tried to be understanding. I told myself it wasn't about me, that it was just something she was experiencing physically and emotionally. But when you're lying next to someone you love night after night, and they treat you like a roommate instead of a partner, it wears you down. And when I was also struggling in my own career, trying to keep up with work, doubting my place in the industry I'd given decades to, the fights became more frequent, sharper, and crueler. It wasn't just the lack of intimacy. It was the feeling of being unwanted, of being a burden. She never said those words out loud, but her silence screamed them. And I kept asking myself, was this what living together was supposed to feel like? Because if it was, I wasn't sure I wanted it anymore. Still, despite the loneliness, I stayed, because I remembered the woman I fell for. I kept telling myself this was just a rough patch, that all couples go through ups and downs, that if I just held on, things would get better. I convinced myself that love was about fighting for each other, even when it wasn't easy, especially when it wasn't easy. But deep down, something inside me knew that we were already unraveling. I just didn't want to face it yet. Living together should have made us feel like a team, but instead, it felt like the walls of our apartment were closing in on me. Every small disagreement became a battle. Every conversation felt like it could turn into an argument. And what scared me the most wasn't the fights themselves. It was how quickly I got used to them. I found myself bracing for conflict the moment I walked through the door. almost like I was preparing for impact. The intimacy between us had all but vanished. First, I tried to bring it up gently. I'd touch her shoulder when she was cooking dinner, or kiss her neck when she was watching TV, small gestures that used to spark something between us. But now, nothing. She'd shrug me off with a half smile, or worse, act like she didn't even notice. I started to feel invisible in my own home. Nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake next to her, staring at the ceiling, wondering when we had stopped being lovers and turned into something closer to roommates. I told myself over and over that her distance wasn't personal. She was going through perimenopause, her body and emotions were changing, and that was something I couldn't fully understand. I wanted to be patient. I wanted to support her. But patience can only carry you so far when the person you love looks at you like you're a stranger. At the same time, I was struggling with my own demons. My career was in a rough patch. The industry I had worked in for decades was changing, and I wasn't sure if there was still a place for me in it. Every day felt like I was walking a tightrope, trying not to slip. I didn't want to bring that stress home, but it bled into everything. My mood, my confidence, even my ability to show up as a partner. So here we were, two people under the same roof drifting further and further apart. When we did talk, it usually ended in raised voices and slammed doors. She accused me of not listening. I accused her of shutting me out. The love that once felt so effortless was now buried under layers of bitterness and resentment. And yet, I kept clinging to the idea that this was just a phase. That one day, we'd wake up and remember what it felt like to actually enjoy being around each other. But the truth was, the cracks were getting too deep to ignore. I started noticing changes in her behavior, subtle at first, then more obvious. She was on her phone more often, scrolling through social media late into the night. I'd catch her smiling at messages, the kind of smile she hadn't given me in months. When I asked who she was talking to, she brushed it off with a casual, just friends. I wanted to believe her. I really did, but something in my gut told me there was more to the story. It all came to a head when we went to a music festival together. First, it felt like a chance to hit reset. A weekend away from the stress, just the two of us, surrounded by good music and good people. She even organized a fundraising event at the festival for a friend of hers who had passed away. I admired her for that. It reminded me of the woman I had fallen in love with, the one who cared deeply and gave so much of herself to others. For a moment, I thought maybe this could be the start of turning things around. But then there were the moments that made me raise an eyebrow. She seemed different, more alive, more energetic, but not with me. I noticed the way she laughed a little too hard at other men's jokes, the way she disappeared into conversations that didn't include me. It was subtle, but enough to plant seeds of doubt in my mind. And when I checked her social media after the festival, I saw she had suddenly added a handful of new male friends. Names I didn't recognize. Faces I didn't know. I didn't say anything at the time, partly because I didn't want to start another fight, and partly because I knew myself too well. I've always believed that if you reach a point where you truly think someone is being unfaithful, then it's already over. You don't interrogate, you don't beg, you walk away. But I wasn't there yet. I still wanted to believe in us. I still wanted to believe in her. So I stayed quiet. I told myself I was being paranoid, that it was just my insecurities talking, fueled by stress and distance. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe that despite everything, we were still on the same team. But looking back now, that silence was the beginning of the end. That festival should have been a highlight for us. I went in with the hope that maybe, just maybe, the music, the energy, and the break from our everyday life would remind us of what we used to have. And in the beginning, it almost felt that way. We laughed, we danced, we shared drinks with strangers who instantly became friends. For a brief moment, I saw a glimpse of the woman I had fallen in love with. The one who was vibrant, spontaneous, and magnetic. But as the hours passed, I started to notice things that didn't sit right with me. Subtle things. The way she pulled away when I tried to put my arm around her in the crowd. The way her eyes lit up when she was talking to other men, but dimmed when she looked back at me. The way she seemed more interested in her phone than in the music we had come to hear. It wasn't just paranoia. I've been around long enough to know when something is off. She wasn't just distracted. She was engaged, animated, alive, but not with me. And once you notice it, you can't unsee it. Every little glance, every little smile, every innocent conversation started to feel like a dagger in my chest. Still, I bit my tongue. I didn't want to be that guy, the insecure boyfriend who reads too much into everything. I told myself to relax, to let her enjoy herself. After all, this was her event too. She had organized a fundraiser in memory of her late friend, and people were there because of her. She was networking, socializing, connecting. That's what I told myself. But deep down, it felt like something else. Something I wasn't a part of. When the festival ended and we got home, things didn't go back to normal. If anything, they got worse. She was glued to her phone, and I noticed her friends' list on social media had exploded with new names. Mostly men. Guys I had never heard of, suddenly showing up in her comments, liking her photos, tagging her in posts. I wanted to ask about it, but I knew exactly how that conversation would go. She would roll her eyes, accuse me of being controlling, and we'd end up in another screaming match. So I stayed quiet. But silence has a way of eating you alive. I found myself lying awake at night, staring at her while she scrolled through her phone, wondering who she was really talking to, wondering if I had already lost her. I wanted to trust her, but trust is hard to hold on to when the person you love feels like a stranger sleeping in your bed. Around this time, we started planning to move into a new house. It was supposed to be a fresh start. Our apartment had become a war zone of arguments and slammed doors, and I thought maybe a change of scenery would help. I found us a rental house, something temporary while I shopped for a home to buy, a place closer to her family, closer to the town she grew up in. I thought I was doing the right thing, choosing stability, choosing her. Looking back, I realized how naive that was, because while I was making plans for our future, she was already planning her exit. The day I was supposed to sign the lease, I remember the sky was gray, heavy with clouds. I was in the car, driving toward the rental office, mentally going over the paperwork and thinking about furniture arrangements. And then my phone rang. It was her. She didn't waste time with small talk. She didn't even sound nervous. Calmly, almost casually, she said, "I think I need a break." I swear, my hands almost slipped off the steering wheel. A break? After everything? After 3 years of living together? After all the fights and compromises? After all the plans we were making for this new house? Now she wanted a break? I kept my voice steady, though inside, my chest felt like it was caving in. I told her we'd talk later after she finished work. But in that moment, something in me shifted. A line had been crossed. And the worst part? The timing. She knew I was on my way to sign that lease. She knew this house was meant to bring us closer to her family, to give her the comfort of being near her parents. And yet, she chose that exact moment to tell me she wanted out. I couldn't shake the thought that this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was planned. That night, when we finally talked face-to-face, I made it clear. I wasn't interested in taking a break. I told her if she needed to step away, then we were done. Because at our age, breaks aren't about working on yourself. They're about opening the door for someone else to walk in. She didn't fight me on it. She didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't even look surprised. Instead, she just nodded, as if she had been expecting that response all along. And that's when it hit me. She had already made her choice. The next few days felt like I was moving through a fog. Everything I thought I knew about our future had been flipped upside down in the span of a single phone call. One moment, I was on my way to sign papers for a house where we were supposed to build a life together. The next, I was staring at the reality that she didn't even want to share that life with me anymore. She packed her things faster than I expected. There was no hesitation, no second thoughts, no lingering looks back at what we'd built together. She didn't move into the new house with me. Instead, she went back to her parents' place, just a few streets away. That detail stung more than I can put into words, because it told me this wasn't some sudden emotional decision. No, she had thought about this. She had planned for it. You don't just decide to move back in with your parents at 49 years old overnight. It was like everything had been orchestrated. While I was making sacrifices to get us closer to her family, she was already arranging her escape route. And the more I thought about it, the angrier I became. How long had she been talking to them about this? How long had she been thinking about leaving while I was out there busting my back trying to secure us a new home? I moved into that house alone. A quiet, hollow building filled with the ghost of plans that would never come to life. The first night I slept there, I sat on the floor surrounded by boxes, staring at the empty space where her things should have been. I had imagined us cooking dinner together in that kitchen, arguing about where to put the couch, laughing as we tried to assemble furniture. But now it was just me, just silence. The commute to work became 30 minutes longer, which might not sound like much, but when you're driving those empty roads every day with nothing but your thoughts, it feels endless. I'd catch myself glancing at her parents' house when I drove past, wondering if she was inside, wondering if she was talking about me. Was she relieved? Was she angry? Or was she just done? What cut the deepest wasn't just that she wanted a break. It was the way she dangled it in front of me afterward, like some twisted olive branch. She kept telling me that if I ever changed my mind, she'd still be open to taking a break. Do you hear how ridiculous that sounds? She didn't want a break to fix us. She wanted a break to free herself, to test the waters, to see if the grass was greener without me. At our age, a break isn't about self-discovery. It isn't about space. It's about creating room for someone else. And I couldn't shake the feeling that there was already someone else in the picture, or at the very least, waiting in the wings. The late nights on her phone, the sudden influx of new male friends, the way she had been pulling away for years. It all started to add up in ways I didn't want to admit. But here's the thing. Whether she was cheating or not almost didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that she had chosen to leave instead of fight for us. That she had made plans behind my back, moved back into her parents' house, and left me to piece together the mess. That said more about where we stood than any secret messages or hidden relationships ever could. I told her plainly. I wasn't interested in pauses, in breaks, in half measures. If she needed space, then she could have it permanently. Because love isn't about control, and it isn't about manipulation. And by trying to push me into this vague break, she was just trying to keep me on a leash while she figured out her next move. That realization broke something inside me. It was the moment I stopped clinging to what we had been and started facing what we had become. Two people on completely different paths. One of us still trying to hold things together, the other already halfway out the door. And as much as it hurt, I knew then that I couldn't be the one chasing anymore. After she left, the strangest part wasn't the loneliness. It was the silence. Our apartment had once been filled with arguments, slammed doors, and cold shoulders, but at least it had been filled with something. Now, in that new house, there was nothing. Just the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floorboards, and the sound of my own breathing echoing in a place that was supposed to be ours. I'd drive through the small town, past her parents' house, and feel this wave of bitterness crash over me. I wondered if she looked out the window when I passed. I wondered if she ever thought about what she had thrown away, or if she was too busy building a new version of her life, one that didn't include me. The cruelest thought of all was that she might not miss me at all. She still reached out, though. Little messages, little reminders that she was still around. Always the same refrain. If you change your mind, we could still take a break. I hated those words. They felt manipulative, like bait on a hook. She wanted me to wait in limbo, to keep the door open just enough for her to step back through if things didn't work out wherever she was headed. But I couldn't let myself be that man, the backup plan, the safety net. The truth is, I'll never know for sure if she was cheating on me. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe all those late nights on her phone, all those new male friends, all the distance and coldness. Maybe it was just coincidence. Maybe it really was just perimenopause, stress, and the slow erosion of something that had once been beautiful. Or maybe it was exactly what my gut told me it was. The beginning of her building a new life without me, brick by brick, while I was still clinging to the old one. And here's the hardest lesson I've had to learn. Sometimes the why doesn't even matter. Whether she cheated, whether she was planning to, or whether she simply fell out of love, the outcome is the same. She chose to leave. She chose a break instead of fighting for us. She chose distance instead of closeness, secrets instead of honesty. And once someone makes that choice, no amount of begging, no amount of reasoning, no amount of love can undo it. I've spent a lot of nights replaying everything in my head, wondering if I could have done something different, if I could have been more patient, more supportive, more understanding. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that love is a two-way street. It doesn't matter how much one person tries. If the other person has already decided to walk away, there's nothing you can do but let them go. So here I am, living in a house that was supposed to be ours, facing a future I didn't plan for. And you know what? Maybe that's okay. Because as painful as it's been, there's also a strange kind of freedom in it. For the first time in years, I don't have to walk on eggshells. I don't have to wonder if I'm enough, or if tonight will end in another fight. I don't have to share my life with someone who sees me as an option instead of a priority. She may have moved back in with her parents, but in a way, I feel like I'm the one who finally came home to myself. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll find love again. But I do know this. I'd rather be alone in an empty house than with someone who makes me feel invisible. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real break I needed all along. Thanks so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me keep bringing you more stories like this. Take care, and I hope you have an amazing day ahead.